Just giving you a little bit of a look around here. So welcome to today's brief live stream. Just thought it'd be good to update you about the situation on the ground, not just the geopolitical situation. What is life actually like here in Odessa in the summer of 2025? And you can see it's a beautiful evening. It's been probably just a little bit over 30 degrees Celsius, and many people have been down at the beach, the seaside, particularly around the Arcadia area of the city. And here in the center, it tends to be a little bit quieter during the day. It comes to life in the evening. So if you were to travel here, actually on my lifestyle channel, I document that a little bit more. I was with a client who is considering moving here. So we went to Lviv, Chernovtsi, then actually went through Moldova, through Chisinau to Odessa. And overall, in spite of the biggest war in Europe since World War II, most things work, and most of the time things are actually normal here. There are no real shortages. Electricity works most of the time. My deal has been out twice for a few hours in the last few days in Odessa in my building where I'm staying. So, but that is unusual, and I haven't been affected really since, I think the worst was the winter of 2022, 2023, that first winter when Russia was trying to destroy all the energy infrastructure. But in general, internet works in the cities at least fine. Also on the road, it was not so bad. A lot of people now have Starlink anyways when I was taking transport. So in any case, you're going to have internet with that, even if the mobile phone is not as strong as it used to be. Internet in my apartment is pretty strong. Cards work, no problem withdrawing money with a foreign card or your Ukrainian card. Also changing money is pretty easy, lots of money changers. And restaurants are open, cafes are open. We do have curfew, as I always have to remind everybody, in the cities, basically everywhere in Ukraine except for Zakarpatskaya Oblast, main city there is Uzhhorod. It's near to the border with Hungary. There they don't have any curfew, but here curfew is from midnight to 5 a.m. and it is pretty strict. And yeah, once I arrived late and I schlepped my suitcase all the way to the city center because I could not order a taxi and there were no taxis there. I got in not that long after midnight. It may have been 20 past 12, or yeah, maybe it was actually 12:40. In any case, there were no taxi drivers waiting outside. It was not possible to order one with an app or with a phone number, so yeah, I had to walk. I think a police car went past me once, but they didn't. I was walking my suitcase so from the bus station into the center, and unfortunately, it was the central bus station, not the one at Privoz, which is closer. Anyways, besides that, in terms of how things are on the ground, it's situational normal until Russia strikes with a terrorist attack, like they did. They strike civilian objects, kill innocent civilians, obviously war crimes. And Kyiv was hit 2 mornings ago, and we saw that the EU delegation building, the British Council, and the Azerbaijani embassy were all hit in those attacks. I think over 15 people were killed, and not a military target in sight of where that happened. So that is the juxtaposition. You have this dichotomy between, like I was even at a very cool house party last night. I'll call it a house party, but it was a private party with a view onto the opera house. And yeah, I mean, it's just pretty crazy to think that's what we can do. And then maybe in a few hours, Russia's going to attack the city again. Because most of the attacks are at night. We did a 1 air alert in the morning. So yeah, this is that you learn to live with that. It's not very enjoyable, especially when you see the air defense and the drones coming in. You can hear them, and then you see them get shot down. The ballistic missile you're probably not going to really see, especially at night. It's just going to hit. And in general, I'm often asked, what is Ukrainian spirit like? That is hard for me to judge because I only speak to, at the end of the day, a pretty small sample of people. I can't speak to hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And I've been hearing for, I think, maybe after the first 3 months even, that Ukrainians are tired of this war. They're basically ready to surrender. But because that's basically what's on the table at the moment in terms of a peace agreement, the complete capitulation of Ukraine. And I don't really see much evidence for that. Are people more tired than they were before? I think people were tired of this war pretty soon after it began. But then human resilience kicks in and people make best with what they have, what they can do in this situation, in this obviously very difficult and challenging situation here in Ukraine. I have noticed that I meet more and more women who are, I presume, single, um, in their 20s, who have returned to Ukraine after being abroad for many years. It's in Lviv, and also in Chernovtsi, and here in Odessa. So I think more people have come back to the country. There's always speculation what will happen after the war. Will a lot of people come back, or will it be, will they stay abroad? But I think a lot of people are already coming back, and probably we won't see an enormous rush to relocate back after the war, if that is going to be sometime. Well, I think realistically it's going to be 2026, and that's kind of what I've been thinking. End of 2025 is we're getting to the second half. There is a small chance that Russia will start to collapse or have serious economic problems. At least that would perhaps put pressure on Putin to end this particular phase of the Russo-Ukrainian war and his war more generally against Europe. Presumably, of course, we don't count Russia as actually being part of Europe as well. At least the rest of Europe in that case. I mean, I always refer to Russia now as Eastern Europe because that is the real east of Europe. This is not anymore. This will presumably, and the city will presumably join the European Union at some point in the future. And that wasn't so clear before this invasion. I think that those chances are a lot higher. So basically, to give you a little bit of a summary, situation is normal most of the day for sure. And then when you've got curfew and probably going to have some air alerts and some drone attacks at the very minimum most of the time here in Odessa, you learn to live with it. And that is what I see in general. So other things I mentioned, the attacks in Kyiv and those targets, not likely to have been a mistake. British Council, EU delegation, and the Azerbaijani embassy, all countries, shall we say, and obviously EU is a supranational entity, all these three polities that Russia has big issues with because they all are standing in the way of Russian hegemony in the region and control and power, and the Russian empire re-expanding. Obviously, Azerbaijan was in that empire, and they do not have good diplomatic relations at the moment. I saw one commenter say, "Oh, it might have been by accident. Why the Azerbaijani embassy? He hasn't been paying attention. Apparently, since Russia shot down an Azerbaijani passenger plane, it actually crashed in neighboring Kazakhstan, and many people were killed. So that was the start of the latest phase of bad diplomatic relations between Azerbaijan and Russia, and that has escalated with some tit-for-tat arrests recently. So obviously British Council, UK is supporting Ukraine's defense and the European Union's delegation. Well, of course, that goes without saying, since Ukraine is a candidate country for joining the EU. EU supports Ukraine, and it's that choice by Ukrainians, by the majority of Ukrainians, that they want to be in the European Union and not in Russia's sphere of influence. That is the reason for this war, along with the fact that Russia doesn't want to allow them to leave its sphere of influence if they still believe in empire, and or at least a 19th century version of empire, where you're going to prevent people from leaving militarily and try to reoccupy, recolonize, and murder. Well, at this point, hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. We don't know exactly how many Russians have died in that endeavor, but also very many of them. So that is my live stream, just a quick one here for this channel, as I'm back and I will be making more content, because unfortunately, the Russo-Ukrainian war is not going to likely be resolved, this phase of it, at all in the foreseeable future. Maybe in 2026. I've always had a good feeling about 2026 since mid 2023 and 2025 into 2026 with time where Russia will really start to hurt economically, and then perhaps have to make very difficult decisions that politically they're not able to make, and that may give some room to ending this phase of the war. Because if Russia brings up all those troops on the line of contact here in Ukraine, they may just move them to the Baltic states and to Finland, the Baltic area, and they've already pre-built the capacity to move troops there. So that doesn't bode particularly well for the future. And drop a comment down below if you have any questions about the geopolitical situation or life here in Ukraine in the summer 2025 with the Russo-Ukrainian war. And also, if you're planning to come here, I have my guide, the Insider's Guide to Ukraine during the war, and there you'll have not just logistical information on how to stay safe, the country situation here, but also my hospitality guide for cities like Odessa, Kyiv, Chernovtsi, Uzhhorod, and Lviv. So on that note, I will say Slava Ukraini, do Permohi, and do Pobachina from a very warm and sunny and pleasant afternoon in free Ukraine, Odesa Mama.